Market Garden. That was the
That was when.
That was Holland.
Yes.
Yeah, waiting on the border. We knew we were told the night before the airborne were going to drop, and we were only about 10 miles away from the Dutch border. We were in Belgium, and we knew what we had to do, and we saw them come in. And once, I shall never forget it, the sky was full of aircraft towing gliders, and but I still don't believe they got them that much in the air, because. And then we saw some of the gliders, one or two landed a bit short, because there was 2 estuaries there, and some of the not regular pilots of the gliders got the wrong river, and they plunked it down more or less where we were. And what they did, these gliders are made of wood, and way back from the nose, there was sort of like a hinge system, and they literally broke them in half. Will you help us break it in half? And we broke it in half, and they had a jeep in there, and they just drove out in the jeep and say, "Which way's on them, mate?" With up, and you wouldn't believe it until you'd seen it. Oh, we knew they were coming the night before, of course, but it was, well, I'd never seen sort of airborne used in, well, it's the first time I'd ever seen it properly used. I know I used it in Normandy, but this was a real assault. Yeah, and there was, well, and what I didn't know, one of my old cycling club mates was there he was in the Scottish Highlanders, I think. As he come from Chiswick, it was rather a strange place for him to be. But he was in the glider. He landed in the glider. A lot of them came down by gliders. Because you were a bit vulnerable in the parachute because you were hanging there quite a time. And some of them did the comedy thing that you see on film, hung in a tree, and nothing could do about it. Yeah. Oh well. In spite of it all, I suppose, the whole thing is in retrospect, but I'm glad I was there. And I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but it's part of life that I wouldn't have missed. It showed me the continent for the first time. I'd never been over there.
So, during Market Garden, were you in the forces that had to link up with the paratroopers?
Yes.
And can you describe what you went through then?
Well, we were going, the paratroops were on, more or less on the coast at Arnhem and round there. And we were still in the out top of Belgium on the Dutch border. And we knew what was going to happen, and we were poised to go in the next morning, when the flight started coming over. And but of course, it wasn't quite as easy as that. And we got a certain few ways up, and there were more bridges. And fortunately, at least 2 of them, I remember, the American airborne got there first, and they saved the bridges, bless them. And so we were able to continue. And the last one, we got to Nijmegen, but the bridge over the Rhine was blown there. But the Royal Engineers, the Germans had blown it in the middle, and the Royal Engineers came along with a Bailey Bridge, and they built a Bailey Bridge in the middle of the old bridge. So we went on, and then you went up and down, and then out there, and it took our transport, it took the tanks, and then, but Jerry was still shelling it, so it wasn't a very healthy place because he still had his guns on it. But I remember we were stationed. We stopped in Nijmegen for a night, I think, and strange enough, the local cinema was showing a film. We went to see it in Nijmegen, and there was, while we were in there was various bangs and crashes outside, and we knew, well, it was Jerry shelling, and so much so the operator of the projector gave up and went home, and as usual, one of the soldiers there was that's what his job was in Civvy Street. So he went up and the show carried on. Well, we got out of Belgium into Holland, and I suppose I remember crossing two river bridges, which the American airport had secured for us, and I think we must have got about 20-25 miles. But I can't be specific on this, but it was quite a way in there. And then our battery came after, because I was with the major in the Jeep, and our battery came. We went into action there, because we could hit the German positions from there.
Did you get in radio contact with the troops at Arnhem?
Yes. Actually, I did, and it came through me, as I was the only one who had a link with them on my set. I had a number 19 set, and they were quite reliable. And I spoke to it was an officer of some sort, and he was giving me map references that he wanted our gunfire to drop shells on, and I'd pass these on, and the gunners would set the men the soldiers, officers mainly, who calculated all the settings for the guns, and calculate it in the command post, pass it on to the gun captains. They would set the elevation and how much charge to put. It's quite complicated, actually, and because if you fall short, the odds are you're hitting your own people. And the code then was, if you heard apples, someone said apples, you knew your shells were dropping on friendly. And that was known as friendly fire, which is a stupid way of putting it, but that's what we called it. Yeah. But I don't think there were many instances of that, or else not many lived to tell us. I don't know. But you'd see, yeah, the old familiar. We all had signs on our vehicles, a regimental sign, or a colour, always blue and white, blue and red usually in the artillery. But I remember one lot in particular, an armoured division went by, and there was a shield, and there was a painting or transfer of an open eye, and ever an open eye. That was the Guards. That's the Guards Armoured Division. They were always watching that.
How did you feel when you when your forces weren't able to get through to Arnhem?
Well, we regretted it, of course, and wondered if we could have done more. But the Americans weren't too pleased, because they weren't in that push with us, and well, some of them were there, particularly their generals were death or glory boys, and I think they thought that we should have done it at all costs. But what the cost would have been, I don't know, because I mean, Jerry was a good soldier, and he didn't give up very easily. Yeah. And how many of us have been left? I don't know. One of those things.
What did you think of, how do I say his name? Is it General Urquhart?
General.
The commander of the 1st Airborne Division, the one you had a letter with.
Oh yes, Urquhart.
Yes. What do you think of him?
I'd never met him, but I've got a letter from him. I did have. I put it in a book I lent to someone about the Nijmegen thing, and they never returned it. I should have known bloody better. And it was from Urquhart, thanking my battery of Royal Artillery for the support we gave the airborne at Arnhem. Because I was on the wireless to Urquhart and his comrades up there, and they were giving us map references where the Germans were and where they wanted our shells to drop. And of course, this all involved mathematics and statistics and what sort of propellant you put, how much you put, and the great worry was that it'd drop on your own troops, and the stupid name for that was friendly fire. It was hardly that. It came from a friendly source, but it wasn't very friendly. When we were talking about 6-inch shells, they weighed £100 each, and that was most of it was just pieces of metal flying, cutting people in half virtually. But and that's why in his letter Urquhart said the way you answered our calls so promptly and with such accurate fire, and I'm proud of it.